Hello again, everybody. So I think it's no secret right now that there is an attack on free speech across the world. It is sad to see it in countries that are purportedly freedom-loving. So up next, we're going to talk about freedom of speech in Europe, where we are here right now, right? So this is a perfect time to do it. Let's please welcome to the stage Winston Marshall of the Winston Marshall Show. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello. So I've been asked to talk about free speech, which is fitting for a Bitcoin conference, because if Bitcoin represents, if anything, represents freedom, it represents liberty, and if you bought at $125,000 earlier this month, it represents suffering. I might note, the last time I spoke at a Bitcoin conference, I was mercilessly heckled. I quickly learned that Bitcoin maximalists have no problem exercising free speech when cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin are discussed. So I will not be discussing other cryptocurrencies tonight, especially not PooCoin. We are in Switzerland, a country famous not just for its abundance of watches, delicious chocolate, and useful if silly knives, but perhaps most of all, and certainly in the mind of us British, their unerring commitment to neutrality. For the Swiss, neutrality is a fence to die on. But in 2025, in the emergence of a new authoritarianism, the Swiss are no longer neutral bystanders. The Swiss have decided to make a stand. The Swiss have come out on the side of the authoritarians. In December, Immanuel Brunischolz, a wind instrument repairman from Bergdorf, just up the road, will begin a 10-day stint in a Swiss prison. His crime? Posting on Facebook the scientific truth that skeletons cannot be transgender. In December 22, replying to a Facebook post by Swiss National Council member Andreas Glarner, Brunischolz wrote, and I quote, "If you dig up LGBTQI people after 200 years, you'll only find men and women based on their skeletons. Everything else is a mental illness promoted through the curriculum." In August 2023, Brunischolz was interviewed by Bergdorf police, who interrogated him over the intent of his comment. Then came the prosecutor's letter informing him he'd been charged with hate speech against the relatively new category of sexual orientation in the Swiss criminal code. He was convicted and fined 500 Swiss francs, or for those of you who have wiped fiat currency completely from your brains, that's 0.000011 BTC. He appealed, was unsuccessful, and Brunischolz was ordered to pay an extra 600 francs for court costs. I won't convert that number because the exchange rate is so volatile that it's already changed since my last sentence. He has since refused to pay his fines for this absurd assault on his free speech, and as a result, like a modern-day Galileo, will face the consequences. Prison. Switzerland, a country which had no problem laundering Nazi gold, takes a hard line when it comes to misgendering skeletons. Now, at this point, it's worth iterating that Immanuel Brunischolz is correct. A skeleton cannot be transgender. Unlike Swiss Army knives, women don't have tools hidden between their legs. I feel the same way about men claiming to be women as I do about people who still talk about their NFTs. I respect your right to do so, but I'm no longer pretending it's serious. Gender dysphoria is serious, but it is a mental disorder. That is not a moral judgment. That is not hate speech. It is a statement of fact. The DSM-4 classifies gender identity disorder as a mental disorder under sexual and gender identity disorders. The DSM-5, no doubt, infiltrated by ideologues, cunningly change this classification, but when reality prevails, and it will be changed back. Brunischolz is also correct that this nonsense is promoted through the curriculum, not just in schools here in Switzerland, but across the developed world. Now, if there is anyone from the Swiss authorities here today, I would like to state my solidarity with Brunischolz for the record. Je suis Emmanuel. And given that this is a multilingual society, and to make myself abundantly clear, les hommes ne peuvent pas être des femmes. Gli uomini non possono essere donne, Männer können nicht Frauen sein. Or, as we say in England, blokes can't be birds. In 2025, the Swiss regime have finally found a position more contemptible than neutrality. As you may likely know, this dystopian treatment of Brunischolz is not unique to Switzerland. Punishment for online speech has swept the continent. In Germany last year, a 64-year-old pensioner had his house raided by police and his computer and mobile phone confiscated. Fortunately, like most of you, he had his crypto wallet on a flash drive taped behind the back of his fridge. Why was he raided? Because Vice-Chancellor Robert Habeck was upset that the pensioner had called him, in a meme posted on X, a Schwachköpfer Professional, a professional imbecile. Now, let me tell you, as someone who had a 14-year career as a professional banjo player, professional imbeciles play a vital role in society, although the Vice-Chancellor takes a different view. In 2024, Germany's Federal Criminal Police Office raided homes and interrogated 45 suspects in 11 states as part of a, quote, combating misogyny on the internet day of action. Marie-Therese Kaiser, a 27-year-old German politician and member of the Alternative for Deutschland party, was convicted in May 2024 of incitement to hatred under Germany's hate speech laws for a 2021 Facebook post criticizing the decision to resettle 200 Afghans in Germany. In that post, she linked to an article citing Federal Crime Office statistics, government statistics. Those statistics showed Afghans are 70 times more likely to commit gang rapes than native Germans. The court ruled the Facebook post, which referred to the Afghans as, quote, culturally alien masses, violated the human dignity of Afghans and incited hatred. Also last year, a German man was slapped with a 5,000 euro fine for insulting a judge. The perpetrator described a judge as, quote, obviously mentally disturbed. Why? Well, the judge issued a light sentence to a Syrian who raped a 15-year-old girl. The fine given to the German man was almost double the fine given to the Syrian rapist. The German state is not taking offensive memes or crude insults lightly. One minister, Christian Democrat Herbert Ruhl, warned, this is a quote, digital arsonists must not be able to hide behind their phones or computers. Anyone who thinks anything is allowed on social media is seriously mistaken. People have forgotten the difference between hate and opinion. It seems to me the Germans have forgotten the difference between hate and facts. According to the German Federal Crime Office, there were 10,732 crimes related to online speech last year. The French aren't much better. Who could forget Chief Europrat Thierry Breton's open letter to Elon Musk last year? Breton, who amongst other responsibilities oversaw the enforcement of the Digital Services Act, or as it's come to be known, the Digital Censorship Act, published an open letter to Musk as the owner of X, in anticipation of Musk's Twitter Spaces, or X Spaces I should say, conversation with Donald Trump in the lead up to the presidential election. Breton's words had no other feasible point or purpose but to try and intimidate both Musk and Trump. And he demanded, I quote, that all proportionate and effective mitigation measures are put in place regarding the amplification of harmful content. My services and I will be extremely vigilant to any evidence that points to breaches of the Digital Service Act and will not hesitate to make full use of our toolbox, including by adopting interim measures should it be warranted to protect EU citizens from serious harm. Breton belongs to an elite class whose instincts are to censor and threaten those whose worldview threatens their own. But worst of all has been my beloved Britain, birthplace of liberty itself. In September this year, not 2 months ago, comedy legend Graham Linehan, upon landing at Heathrow Airport, was arrested by 5 armed policemen. His crime? 3 trans-related jokes on X, one of which was a photograph of a pro-trans protest with the caption, "A photograph you can smell." He's not the only comedian to be arrested. In 2017, comedian Count Dankula spent the night in a cell after making a comedy video of his pug doing a Nazi salute made intentionally to irritate and annoy his girlfriend. Scotland's new Hate Crime and Public Order Act, which came into effect on April 1st of all days last year, can be applied to public performance of a play, podcast, social media, even private discussions. Things aren't much better in England. After the horrific Southport murders last summer, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer led a crackdown on protesters, not just on the streets, but in the tweets. Lee Dunn was sentenced to 8 weeks for reposting a meme on Facebook. Not posting, reposting. I should say 3 memes. 24-year-old Cameron Bell was sentenced to 9 months for live streaming the aftermath of the Southport riots on her TikTok. Not for participating in the riots, not for live streaming the riots, for live streaming the aftermath of the riots. Most famous, I'm sure most of you will have heard of Lucy Connolly, 41-year-old former childminder and wife of a Conservative councillor. She was sentenced to 31 months in prison for the following ex-post. Quote, "Mass deportation now, set fire to all the effing hotels, full of the bastards, for all I care. If that makes me racist, so be it." Now, that's an ugly post. Not one I would have posted myself. But I'll also confess that in the heat of the moment, after that horrific murders in Southport, I had some ugly thoughts. But 31 months for a quickly deleted tweet? I mean, she'd realized she'd gone too far pretty quickly, and I believe it wasn't long before, only a couple of hours before she deleted the tweet. The disparity in prison time between Connolly and a range of pedophiles and rapists who have shorter or suspended sentences has rightfully earned our Prime Minister the moniker Two-Tier Keir, a nickname the Prime Minister has not been pleased about. American Congressman Jim Jordan revealed that a minister of the UK government Department for Science, Innovation and Technology directed American platforms to, quote, "come back to us on any measures you have taken in response to narratives about a two-tier system." Thierry Breton's instincts to censor are shared north of the Channel. And just as the Tory government put into action their counter-disinformation unit during COVID, lest anyone dare suggest that the COVID epidemic was leaked from a lab in Wuhan, The current Labour government have ushered in a new disinformation unit as part of the Online Safety Act. Things get a whole lot sillier. In 2017, a 19-year-old called Chelsea Russell from Liverpool posted lyrics from her favorite rap song on Instagram, and it being a rap song, I won't repeat the lyrics, but she paid them in tribute to a boy who had died in a road crash. A court deemed them offensive. She was made to pay a fine. She was made to obey a government-mandated curfew, and she was made to wear an electronic ankle monitor for 8 weeks. More recently, a man in East London was arrested for posting a video on Facebook in October 23 complaining about all the Palestine flags that had turned up overnight across his neighborhood of Bethnal Green. All this, of course, in the aftermath of Hamas's attack on Israel. Journalist Alison Pearson got a rap on the door from the old Bill because of a long-deleted tweet where she'd accidentally misidentified a Pakistan flag for a Hamas or Islamist flag. In the UK, we now have 12,000 arrests a year for online speech crimes. That is 30 a day. By comparison, Russia makes 400. But things are worse. Over 250,000 non-crime hate incidents have been recorded in the UK since 2014. These include one child who was booked for saying her classmate smelt like fish, and a 14-year-old autistic schoolboy at Kettlethorpe High School in Wakefield who accidentally dropped and slightly scuffed a copy of the Quran in a school corridor. De facto blasphemy laws are set to become official with the impending APPG Islamophobia definition, which will outlaw criticism of Islam, and already Labour MPs such as Tahir Ali have been openly arguing for blasphemy laws to be reintroduced in Parliament. But being England, it gets sillier still. Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old army veteran, was arrested and convicted for silently praying for approximately 3 minutes outside an abortion clinic in Bournemouth. Smith Connor is one of many arrested for silent prayer, but he was the only one referred to by Vice President J.D. Vance at the Munich Security Conference in February this year. The Vice President, in that speech, appealed to the common values of the West, and he warned, "From what I worry about is that the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values that are shared with the United States of America. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat," he said. Thrilled as I am by what J.D. Vance was calling out, I believe he's made a mistake. It might be worth examining whether we really ever had free speech in the UK and Europe in the same way that the Americans have. Yes, of course, Britain gave the world John Locke, John Milton, and John Stuart Mill, whose phenomenal tracts on free speech are as relevant today as ever. But it's worth remembering that Britain had blasphemy laws until 2008. The last blasphemy prosecution being White House versus Gay News in 1977, when Mary Whitehouse, a prominent Christian campaigner, brought a private prosecution against Gay News over a poem titled "The Love That Dares to Speak Its Name," which depicted a Roman centurion's sexual fantasies about Jesus Christ after the crucifixion. Gay News were charged and convicted under the common law offense of blasphemous libel. In 1960, the publisher of Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence was convicted and sentenced to a fine under the Obscene Publications Act for distributing a novel deemed obscene due to its explicit sexual content. British free speech champions continuously refer to our common law system for speech protection. But when was this golden age of free speech under common law exactly? Surely not under Henry VIII or Oliver Cromwell, and apparently not in the 20th century either. As for the continent, well, the Spanish followed 800 years of authoritarian Muslim overlordship with 350 years of Inquisition. An Inquisition, of course, which was not reserved just for the Iberian Peninsula, but the Netherlands until the Dutch Revolt, as well as Spain's Italian territories. Napoleon was quite a censorial tyrant. His reign was a masterclass in muzzling the very liberté he claimed to champion. It may have been an improvement on the gory days of the guillotine, but Napoleon's press law of 1810 had journalists and publications heavily censored. France had 73 newspapers in 1799 and only 4 by 1814. Over 2,400 book titles were banned by 1814, and even the theatre got the Bonaparte boot, with over 1,200 scripts vetted annually by the Ministry of Police. Now, I'm fairly confident I don't have to make the case to this audience about the Germans' less than desirable record on free speech in the last century, nor indeed the Italians. European history is one long story of censorship, from Galileo's arrest for the heresy of arguing the earth may in fact rotate around the sun as proposed by Copernicus. And there was, of course, the OG free speech martyr, Socrates who drank deadly hemlock in 399 BC after being charged with failing to acknowledge the gods the city acknowledges and introducing new divinities and making the younger generation question traditional values and authority. Today, the only free speech rights we have are in Article 10 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which I urge you all to read because it's totally farcical, in which Part A proclaims our rights and Part B lists all the realms in which our Part A do not apply, so much so as that Part A is almost entirely redundant. What issues that are being censored might be quite new, but censoring itself is nothing new. In fact, it was precisely Europe's terrible record which inspired James Madison when he drafted the First Amendment in 1789. So then the question is, why are they censoring? And it's not just because skeleton trans lives matter. Censorship is wielded to protect power. In this case, it is an elite class who have staked their lives on the post-war consensus of globalism, progressivism, environmentalism, multiculturalism, diversity, etc., etc., etc. Lies as patent as men being women or as skeletons being transgender need legal protection because they will soon enough be mugged by reality. Just as we saw the Twitter files in America, the regime is desperately trying to contain the opinions of ordinary people who disagree. It was Barack Obama himself who claimed the internet and social media were, quote, the single biggest threat to our democracy. But bad as things are, they're going to get worse. I'm sure this audience are quite aware of the dangers of digital IDs. Combine that with facial recognition and CBDCs, well, it's going to be fun. Imagine such infrastructure in the hands of governments petty enough to press criminal charges of someone who makes the audacious claim that skeletons can't change sex. And for those that believe Trump, Orban, Meloni, Farage are all lateral Nazis, aren't you concerned that that infrastructure might be in their hands? We do not need to imagine when debanking for wrongthink might begin. It already has. Most famously in Britain, Reform Party leader Nigel Farage had his Coots account blocked in 2023. The question really is, what can be done? What can be done to protect or reclaim our liberty? The answer is, in part, at the ballot box. But perhaps more reliable still, though, only in part, by Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto wrote he believed with cryptography we could win a major battle in the arms race and gain a new territory of freedom for several years. By carving out territories of freedom, as Satoshi wrote, we can give ourselves footholds to fight for freedom in other domains. Switzerland may no longer be such a territory of freedom, but Bitcoin is. We do not know what the authoritarians of the future will look like. Who could have predicted that stating skeletons can't be transgender would get you 2 weeks behind bars in pleasant neutral Switzerland? But we can safely predict there will be authoritarians in the future. If today the authoritarians are globalists and progressives and trans ideologues, tomorrow they may be fundamentalist watchmakers, they may be totalitarian chocolatiers, or even extremist fence sitters. Europe and Britain may have had a long battle with liberty, but it was here at least where liberty was born. And as we are subtly dragged into this new dystopian future, we must cling to every little territory of freedom we can reach. Thank you very much.